Anna Soubry.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker, and it may be that I can actually shorten my comments because I want wholeheartedly and thoroughly to adopt the outstanding and excellent analysis and conclusions from the Right Honourable Member for Derby South. She does indeed speak with great authority, and she, of course, herself knows, as a proud representative of the city of Derby, and in her own constituency, the Rolls-Royce plant. She also knows the Toyota plant that exists near to Derby. So when she speaks about the just-in-time supply chains, when she speaks about our manufacturing, I would suggest there are few who could speak with so much genuine authority and knowledge. And in her analysis, as I say, and in her conclusions, she is absolutely right. And I'm delighted that she and I also agree that we should now have a people's vote on this, the most important decision that our country will take and face for decades. And, Mr. Speaker, I also want to say this. You, I think, understand, perhaps more than many, but how that consensus, that agreement, was here in this House shortly after the referendum result. And the great failing, and it gives me no pleasure to say this of my own government, the great failing was from the outset, when instead of reaching out across this House and across our country to heal the divisions, to bring together the 48 and the 52, I'm afraid and sorry to say the exact opposite was done. The 48% were tossed aside, we were abused, we were sidelined. If we had even the temerity to question almost anything, we were called Ramonas. It is supremely ironic that it is because of brave colleagues who normally sit here in what's called the naughty chamber, who about a year ago stood up to the abuse, the calls of calling us traitors and mutineers, and yes, the death threats. And we actually voted, I think with some courage, for what is now happening today, to enable honourable members to debate in the way that they will and then to vote. And the irony of it is not lost on me that some of those who were most ardent in their opposition to what we did 12 months ago are now the most keen to take advantage of it. Mr. Speaker, I will not vote for this deal on any other basis than it goes to the people for their approval. This is not a good deal. In fact, it's not a deal, as many have already observed. It's certainly not what we were promised, not even by our Prime Minister, who shortly after the triggering of Article 50 was interviewed, by way of example, by Andrew Marr. The tape exists. He questioned whether it would be possible in the next 2 years to begin to get anywhere near securing, or just even to the beginning stage, of all the various deals that had to be secured. And she was confident it all could be done within 2 years. Well, here we are today, and what do we know? We have a political declaration which can be ripped up by any Prime Minister or any government that comes in once we've left the European Union. The withdrawal agreement is the only legally binding part of this so-called deal. As we know, there is nothing to implement, certainly nothing that we were promised. The so-called transition period is to an unknown destination because after 2.5 years, we still do not know what our eventual relationship with the European will be, and that's simply not good enough. The withdrawal agreement is indeed a blindfolded Brexit which fails to deliver on the promises not made just by the Leave campaign, but also, I am sorry to say, by my own government. And as the Right Honourable Lady for Derby South has said so beautifully and eloquently, honourable and right honourable members on this side of the House who think that this will all be over, we just get on with it, just do it, and we'll all go home for Christmas and it'll all be over. With great respect, you are completely and utterly fooling yourselves. We've already heard speeches about those who prefer a no-deal, hard Brexit. You can be assured that if we leave next March with nothing more than this withdrawal agreement and this political declaration that can be torn up, they will carry on and on and on for years in their quest to sever all ties with the European Union. And as I say, they will do it because of the non-minding nature of the political declaration. And how poor is that political declaration? As others have already observed, it is so vague that the government couldn't even apply its assessments to it to try and inform us of the financial consequences of it. And of course,
would you agree with me that this is actually exemplified in Article 107 of the Future Framework on Space, where it just says the parties should consider appropriate arrangements for cooperation on space. That is it.
Indeed it is. It is nothing more than warm words of good intentions, but there's no mention now of the frictionless trade which we were all promised. Services, which make up 80% of our economy, barely get a mention. And of course the political declaration is the high point as we now go into entering negotiations in March. But the worst part of the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration is that it will make our constituents and our country poorer. And I did not come to this place, and I will not vote for anything that makes my constituents poorer, especially when a far better alternative exists. On its own admission, this government is urging people to vote for this so-called deal in the clear knowledge it will reduce the future economic prospects of the people of this country, and that is on their best assessments, or rather guesses, because we know of the inherent problems and the inaccuracy, in effect, of the impact assessments and the forecasts that have made. They just give us the best. In fact, many believe it will be far worse than even those estimates have given. No one should be under any illusions of how bad a place the backstop will be, and I won't rehearse some of the arguments that have been very well put forward by others. It's not just vassalage. It will convey only a bare-bones customs union, none of the regulatory alignment that is so critical for business. Northern Ireland will indeed have limited benefits, but there'll be better benefits than the rest of the United Kingdom, which is clearly a threat to the union of our country. And I say to people on these benches, as members of the Conservative and Unionist Party, on what possible basis can you vote for that? As others have observed, we'll not be able to deliver any of the unicorn trade deals that have so far eluded us, but apparently will magically appear in the next 2 years, nor will we indeed it seems, be able to benefit from the dozens of great trade deals that we already have, because we are a member of the European Union. And that is the reality of it, Mr. Speaker. This is not what Leave voters in Broxtowe voted for. They've seen through the lies on buses, and they now know of the broken promises. They see that whichever way you cut it, Brexit will make them poorer and reduce the life chances of their children and their grandchildren. And they're entitled, now that they see the reality of Brexit, to change their minds and have a final say by way of a people's vote. Now, it is said it's a price worth paying, but I reject that, Mr. Speaker, because I understand the political consequences, as many say, about the need to deliver this. But we, all of us, have to put our country and our constituents first. And if we do that, we will see and understand the best deal we have is the current deal that we have with the European Union. It's not just good for trade, it's also about the country that we are, open-minded, open-hearted, and I fear for our country if we set course now and agree to this deal and make the grave mistake of leaving the European Union that has conveyed so much prosperity and delivered peace and a better country.
Thank you.